Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed dignitaries, good evening. Welcome to the Embassy of India for the Symposium on Voice of Global South Summit 2024. On August 17, 2024, India hosted the third edition of Voice of Global South Summit, bringing together countries of the Global South on a unified platform. This initiative has successfully garnered representation from over 100 countries across each of its editions. Today, we are delighted to present a summary of the summit's deliberations. Let us begin today's program with a short video.
भौगोलिक रूप से तो ग्लोबल साउथ तो हमेशा से रहा है, लेकिन उसे इस प्रकार से वॉइस पहली बार मिल रही है और यह हम सभी के साझा प्रयासों से संभव हुआ है।
With this, let me invite on stage His Excellency Mr. Sibi George, the Ambassador of India to Japan, to deliver the opening remarks.
Honorable Special Secretary Shri P. Kumaran, Joint Secretary, Policy Planning Division of MEA, Mr. Raghuram S., Your Excellencies, ambassadors who have joined this session, senior diplomats, friends of India, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to each one of you for today's meeting, Symposium on Voice of Global South Summit 2024. I welcome each one of you. I would like to begin by thanking our Special Secretary, Shri P. Kumaran, who has joined online from Delhi. He was the coordinator for the Voice of Global South Summit, which was held in the third meeting, which was held in New Delhi this year. And so I'm very happy that he could join us. I'm very happy to see our ambassadors who are present here. We gather here today to reflect on an event that brought together the voices of 125 of countries, the Voice of Global South Summit 2024. This third edition, held on August 17th, was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, under the theme An Empowered Global South for a Sustainable Future. The summit saw the participation of 173 dignitaries from 123 countries of the Global South. The initiative of Voice of Global South stems from the Prime Minister Modi's guiding vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, or Sabka Prayas, ensuring collective progress, mutual trust, and united efforts. This initiative also draws inspiration from India's age-old philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world as one family. The fact that this summit was convened under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Mr. Modi within first 100 days of the new government, after the largest election in the history of the world when 1 billion people constituted the electorate, speaks to India's unwavering commitment to the cause of Global South. It also reflects our earnestness in fostering meaningful engagement, listening to leaders, and prioritizing a shared developmental journey. The choice of the themes chosen for the ministerial sessions, health, finance, energy, education, environment, also shows the priority areas of the countries of the Global South. I am, as ambassador of India to Japan, I am also the ambassador of India to the Republic of Marshall Islands. And I am very happy to note that the president of Marshall Islands also had participated in the Global Voice of Global South number 3, which was held in New Delhi. Dear friends, the Voice of the Global South was envisioned as a collective platform, a space where developing nations can discuss and address issues of utmost interest to them. It was launched first under India's G20 presidency when in 2023. When we talk about the G20 presidency, three main points come to the mind. One, this was a summit where, despite we live in a divided world, we were able to bring everyone together and unanimously adopt a declaration which is, we can say, is a declaration for hope for the world. It was unanimously adopted by the member countries participating in the discussions. Second, very important, we were able to, through the Global South Summit, bring the challenges and values of the Global South, understand the challenges, and then take it on board to the agenda of the G20. When we organized 200 meetings in India with the participation of the member countries and the invitee countries, and when we organized it throughout the country, more than in 60 cities, the agenda prominently had the Global South challenges on its agenda, which is very important. Third, equally important, first time in the G20 presidency of India, we had the African Union as a permanent member. Now it is not G20, it's actually G21 with the Africa Union, which brought more than 1 billion people to the table of G20. So these 3 points makes that G20 presidency something special, and I'm very happy to see that that momentum is maintained and continued in the new G20 meetings as well. So it brought to the light the unique challenges, aspirations, and priorities of the Global South, and aimed to ensure that these perspectives receive the attention they deserve globally. During the latest summit, leaders appreciated the initiative hosting the third summit, citing our democratic resilience, development path, and commitment to humanity as inspirations for the Global South. Dear friends, in alignment with India's Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and our shared ambitions for beyond 2030, Prime Minister Modi proposed Global Development Compact for the Global South to facilitate trade, sharing of technologies, and concessional financing. Additionally, India has committed substantial resources to promote development in the Global South. So I would not like to get into the details of it. We have presentations and speeches lined up for you to give you an overview of what exactly is the way forward. Once again, I thank each one of you who have joined us here and also joined us online today for this interesting symposium on Voice of Global South Summit 2024. I also thank my colleagues from the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, who are joining online. Once again, welcome and thank you, particularly for the ambassadors, the excellencies who have found time to come and join us, also the senior diplomats and other friends of India. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Excellency. May I request you to please remain on stage? So we would like to click a photograph, so if you could remain on the stage. I would also like to request the Excellencies, ambassadors of Republic of Malawi, Bolivian Republic of Venezuela, Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and Côte d'Ivoire to kindly join the ambassador on stage. And Honorable Ambassador of Kenya.
I hope we haven't
Thank you, Excellencies. Moving on with the program, I would now like to welcome Mr. P. Kumaran, Special Secretary, ER and DPA from Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, who has joined us virtually to deliver his address.
Sorry, I think yeah. Distinguished invitees, excellencies, dear colleagues from Delhi and our embassy in Tokyo, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, namaskar, konnichiwa. It is a pleasure to join you online from Delhi for this symposium organized by our embassy in Tokyo. I thank our ambassador, His Excellency C.B. George, for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts on India and the Global South. Since my colleague, Mr. Raghuram, will be doing a separate presentation on the Voice of the Global South Summit, I will try and focus my remarks on the context in which India engages the Global South and also give you some broad details on the developmental interventions of India in the Global South. The Global South is largely a political construct as much as it is a geographical reality. Most of the countries of the Global South have a sense of shared historical experiences, be it in the form of colonial domination, the long and arduous struggles to achieve their independence, the continuing burdens of the effects of colonialism, including in many cases a lingering legacy of territorial disputes, economic exploitation, and policy-induced social deprivation, and finally, a grievance flowing from inadequate or ineffective representation in the institutions of global governance. In addition to these historical disabilities, the COVID-19 pandemic and its lingering economic effects, the recent geopolitical upheavals, and the disruption of international trade and supply chains have severely constricted developmental choices and avenues available for countries of the global south and have constrained their abilities to achieve the sustainable development goals. Climate change induced events and the emergence of a digital divide when it comes to new and emerging technologies have added another element of uncertainty and disadvantage. Accounting for about 85% of the world population, the global south countries need a development paradigm that takes into account their priorities and concerns. And the global governance architecture needs to find creative ways to listen to the voice of the global south on these issues. Friends, India envisions a common future for the global south for these reasons. India's G20 presidency in 2023 provided an opportune moment for onboarding the concerns of developing countries onto a major plurilateral platform and shape its agenda in ways that are relevant to the global south. As the ambassador pointed out, the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20 at the New Delhi summit last year, making it G21, was a logical consequence. India organized the first Voice of Global South Summit in January 2023 for consultations among the Global South. The inputs received at that summit informed and shaped the agenda and deliberations during our G20 presidency. The second edition took place in November 2023 to take stock, and the discussions focused on adding further momentum to build a more inclusive, representative, and progressive world order. This year, we organized the third edition of the summit under the theme, An Empowered Global South for a Sustainable Future. The summit saw the participation, as the ambassador noted, of 173 leaders and ministers from 123 countries across the global south. Held a few weeks before the UN-organized Summit of the Future in New York, the third Voice of Global South Summit provided us with a valuable forum to exchange views on a range of developmental issues, including on ways to effectively deploy DPI platforms for accelerating SDGs beyond 2030. Dear friends, India's development cooperation was built on the premise of expressing solidarity with countries having a sense of shared experiences and challenges. Despite its resource constraints, India started sharing its developmental experiences and technical expertise with other developing countries. Over the years, we have utilized this foundation to develop a more comprehensive policy of development cooperation. India's approach to development partnerships is human-centric and demand-driven, offering assistance while sharing India's own developmental experience in a wide range of activities. India also prefers to describe itself as a development partner to other countries rather than as a donor, thus setting an egalitarian tone in its development cooperation from the very beginning. The objective is to create a higher level of capacities in the host country so that instead of prolonged dependency, we can achieve a mutually beneficial interdependency. Accordingly, our project portfolio encompasses roads and bridges, railway links, ports and related infrastructure, developing and reviving inland waterways, upgrading border-related infrastructure, setting up power stations and expanding transmission line networks, IT and telecommunication infrastructure, and enabling smoother flow of goods and passengers across borders. In addition, India has also undertaken a number of projects in the areas of healthcare, education, community development, capacity building, agriculture, and digital public infrastructure, contributing to greater economic and cultural connectivity. So far, over 300 lines of credit amounting to 31 billion US dollars have been extended to 68 countries in various sectors. In keeping with the high priority we attach to our neighborhood first policy, we have extended lines of credit totaling over $14 billion to our neighbors, namely Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Maldives. Over 8 billion of these lines of credit are allocated for connectivity projects. Africa's share of our line of credit portfolio is about $12 billion and is spread over 42 countries. In addition to these lines of credit, India has supported projects in a number of countries with outright grants amounting to nearly $5 billion. Community development projects are an active pillar of India's grant assistance as they are less capital intensive, have short gestation periods, and are generally community oriented. India has undertaken such projects worth millions of dollars in Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, Mauritius, and many African countries. Capacity building is another core component of India's development partnerships. The Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation (ITEC) program, established as far back as 1964, continues to be among the oldest and largest mechanisms for international capacity building, with a special focus on assisting our brothers and sisters from the global south. Since then, we have provided training in a number of fields to over 240,000 officials from over 160 countries through more than 2,500 courses offered at more than 120 world-class institutions in the civilian and defense sectors. Skill development in IT as well as higher education courses in computer science have been a major success story in India's capacity building partnerships. ITEC defense courses are provided by the Ministry of Defense through its more than 100 defense institutes and nearly 600 courses. Since 2014, over 26,000 defense training slots have been offered to 130 countries, and over 13,000 defense trainees have benefited. In addition, we are also exploring new ideas and possibilities for implementing projects under triangular cooperation with key partners such as the Quad, Germany, the European Union, Japan, UK, and France, and also multilateral and plurilateral platforms such as the International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, etc. Dear friends, the reality in the global south today is that capital flows have reduced, trade opportunities have stagnated, and living standards are dropping even as debts mount. Developing countries are expected to bear the burden of developing climate resilience, industrializing without carbonizing, dealing with increasing climate disasters, and lifting millions out of poverty, all at the same time with minimal external support. It is India's belief that the global south has to be a much larger and more vocal participant in finding solutions to intractable global issues. We have therefore joined hands to underline the urgent need for comprehensive reform of the international financial architecture and a more inclusive approach to global financial governance. International organizations and financial institutions, including the UN Security Council, IMF, and the World Bank, must undergo reforms to promote greater representation from countries of the global south. Multilateral development banks must find ways to provide sustainable and tailor-made climate financing options for vulnerable countries without exacerbating current levels of indebtedness. Let me conclude by underlining that the Voice of the Global South Summit is unique in that it is not a forum led by a secretariat, nor is it bound by foundational political documents that need to be prescribed and acceded to for participation. It has emerged as a convenient platform for developing countries to voice their developmental concerns and priorities and exchange views on the best ways to forge both South-South and North-South cooperation. We will continue to rely on this mechanism as long as we and our partners continue to find value in this initiative. Thank you. Arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful remarks. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Raghuram S., Joint Secretary, PPNR, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, for a detailed presentation on India and Voice of Global South Summit.
Can you see the presentation now? Okay. So, good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you hear my voice. I would like to thank Ambassador C.B. George and our mission for organizing this symposium, and also Special Secretary Mr. Kumaran for providing the larger context for India's engagement with the Global South. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay. Before we proceed, at the cost of some repetition, I would like to highlight some of the facts relating to the development challenges faced by countries of the Global South. You can see them on the screen. As we know, a large segment of the population in the Global South is facing challenges of access to education, employment, affordable healthcare, and a global trade regime that does little to advance their development. In addition, the Global South countries are facing disproportionate brunt of disruptions to global supply chains in the post-pandemic period, and conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, as well as elsewhere. The Voice of Global South Summit, as Special Secretary mentioned, was an initiative that began in the context of the G20 presidency of India. And there were some of the issues and focus areas that we, in consultation with our partners in the Global South, focused on. These issues and focus areas ran as a common thread in all the three summits that we held in the last 1.5 years. One is there is a flux in the global order with all its attendant ramifications, and there is need to address these issues. The apparent shortcomings of the global governance institutions in preventing or quickly resolving conflicts is another concern. To address issues arising out of 3 Ds that we have been talking about: de-risking, decoupling, and deglobalization that the pandemic has thrown at all of us, and also the potential disruptive risks of new and emerging technologies, including applications based on artificial intelligence. So these were some of the thrust areas that were addressed in all the 3 summits so far. The first and second Voice of Global South summits were held in the context of India's G20 presidency, as we have mentioned. A considered decision was to engage our partner countries from the Global South. Their priorities and concerns were discussed at the first WOGs in January 2023, which were the outcomes of which reflected the agenda and discussions in various G20 working groups, as well as the New Delhi G20 Summit's Leaders' Declaration. I would say no other G20 summit focused so much on the development agenda as this one did, apart from other global issues of finance and climate resilience and other issues. Some of the issues that the G20 presidency discussed and focused on at the New Delhi summit, as well as in all the working groups, they flew out of the discussions we had in walks. So some of them I would like to highlight. One is African Union's joining of G20 as a member, which remedied a glaring lacuna at this plurilateral grouping. The summit agreed to set up a very more ambitious and trackable new collective quantified goal of climate finance from a floor of just over $100 billion. It endorsed deployment of digital public infrastructure, or DPIs, as we call them, to deliver services at scale. In addition, the New Delhi G20 summit demonstrated that solutions for global challenges can emerge from Global South itself. As can be seen, some of these include establishment of a disaster risk reduction working group and a Startup 20 engagement group that were established. Launch of Global Biofuel Alliance on the sidelines of the G20 summit. The launch of India Middle East Economic Corridor, or IMEC. The Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, just to name a few. At the concluding session of the leaders session of the second G20, at the second Voice of Global South Summit, Honorable Prime Minister of India summarized the key deliberations across all the ministerial and leaders sessions into these 10 principles. They encompassed a wide range of issues that were discussed. There were broad political principles, as well as some very concrete ideas that had been discussed. You can see them on the screen. At the third Voice of Global South Summit in August this year, this was hosted by the Prime Minister a few weeks before the Summit of the Future hosted by UN in New York. A key objective was also to exchange views on the 2030 agenda and way forward. As already mentioned, about 173 leaders, including heads of state and government, as well as ministers from over 123 countries, participated in 11 thematic sessions at the third Voice of Global South Summit. We have issued a detailed chief summary, which is available on our ministry's website. It sort of conveys and encompasses the wide range of views expressed and these issues discussed at the third Voice of Global South Summit. At the three Voice of Global South Summits, India also made various commitments. They were in the nature of various development initiatives, capacity building, and they encompassed these areas, about 10, 11 areas that you are looking at your screen, encompassing a number of domains that are of interest to the Global South. Some of them I would like to mention, and these include pledging about $2.5 million for trade promotion activities by Global South countries, about $1 million in grant for capacity building, particularly in trade policy and negotiations for our development partners. India also committed about $25 million in funding support to the Global Social Impact Fund to expand digital public infrastructure in the Global South. The Prime Minister also announced establishment of Global South Scholarships and a Global South Center of Excellence, or Dakshin, which has been made operational since last year, focusing on developmental issues of concern to the Global South. Some of the key propositions that came out of the Global South have already been mentioned, but one of them I would like to highlight, which was made at the third Voice of Global South Summit by Honorable Prime Minister of India. In stark contrast to debt-driven roads of development being offered by some, Honorable Prime Minister offered a more comprehensive global development compact that will have 4 pillars. One is pursuing a trade model that aids in the development journey of the Global South countries. He offered a partnership for capacity building for sustainable growth, sharing technology to better deal with our developmental challenges, including deployment of DPIs and other technologies to cut costs for better service delivery and to achieve scale. The last but not the least one development finance, and grants for specific projects rather than shoring up revenue expenditure. This was been widely welcomed. The leaders at the third Voice of Global South Summit, more than 24 of them participated in the opening leader session, welcomed these proposals, and they reiterated the value of this forum. So, as Special Secretary mentioned, we intend to continue convening and hosting this Voice of Global South Summit as long as we and our partners find value in this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for this comprehensive presentation. Now, let us welcome on stage Ms. Atsuko Maeda, who will be presenting the classical Indian dance form originating in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, Kathak. Thank you to Ms. Maeda and her troupe for this beautiful performance. With this, we come to the conclusion of today's program. We invite you to join us for refreshments served in the foyer outside the hall. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you have a pleasant evening.